ना जाने मेरा दसां पातशाहियां दी आत्मक जोत कलयुग के बोहित नाम के जहाज हलत पलत की रक्षा करने वाले धन 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 साहिब श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी महाराज आप दी अपार बख्शिश दा सदका पातशाह साइबर संगत एक बारी फेर जुड़ बैठी है जी। आप संगत ते किरपा करो संगत दी रचना ते बैठ के आप अपना जस अपना गुरु विचार करवाउण दी समर्था दिओ। सही प्यारे मिलो जियो जिन्ना मिलिया आप जी दा नाम चित्ते आवे गुरु नानक नाम चढ़दी कला तेरे भाणे सरबत का भला। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। It's a great privilege to have another session of Gurmat Vichar on the cyberspace. We welcome all the panel members. And to continue the discussion from the last time, if I correctly recall, we are doing the Pauri Pariye Hath Pair Tan De Pani Tote Utraskhe Moot Pliti Kappad Hoye De Saban Layo Thoye. And it proceeds. I would appreciate in case we have, I can see some new members who can give their perspective on this Pauri. I'll go to Ekunkar Korji first of all to start, and then I would appreciate in case HK Virji and H Virji. That's all I can read. They can take over from Ekunkar Korji, and we'll be listening, and then gradually we'll involve in the discussion. Ekunkar Korji.
Thank you, Virgie. It's nice to be joining you guys, all of you this week. So I think this Pauri it's a really important thing that Guru Nanak is talking about, because in it balancing out the notion of hukam with the notion of sort of free will. So when we talk about, well, what's divine will and what's the human being responsible, to me this Pauri really speaks to that issue. And so he gives the examples at the beginning, when the hands, the feet, the whole body become dirty, water washes it all away. He's saying we know how to clean the body. And when the clothes are stained, soap and water can remove it. So we know how to clean sort of the outer world. But the idea of pop comes into the story, and the way that I've understood pop, I think sin is a pretty not good translation of pop. I think pop is more the residue in the mind when you get hurt, or when you hurt somebody or somebody hurts you, it leaves like a block to seeing the divine inside of you. And that we all go through that. It's like the normal wear and tear of life. We're always getting hurt, or we're always stepping on somebody else, or and it blocks us from recognizing the divine. And so when the mind becomes filled with that pop, with these memories that are painful that we don't know how to break through, then it's the experience of the Nam, or the authentic self. That's how I understand Nam, the authentic divine being within me. It's the experience of the Nam that can help me, my own authentic infinity, that can help me start to clean that pop. And so the last lines of the Pauri are, Puni Papi Akananahe, and it's that, look, we're not virtuous, we're not good or bad, we're not virtuous or troubled based on what we say. Like, people can say lots of things. It's our actions that create these habits in us, and the actions are what, our habits rule our life. And so Guru Nanak is saying, look, human being, you have the ability to create habits that are either positive or negative for yourself. And your ability to create habits is where you have free will. You can relate to the positive or you can relate to the negative. What you say doesn't matter. It's the actions you do over and over and over again that create the Akashic record, that create your cycle of reincarnation that you take with you when you go. And then at the same time, he brings it to a higher place at the end, where he says, Ape bija pehi kal, which is, okay, look, what you sow, you're going to reap. If you sow the positive habits, you're going to reap positive experience. If you sow negative habits, you'll reap negative experience. But then at the end, like he always does, he puts the grand contradiction in there. You know, Nana Kukami Avaho Jaho, which, sorry, my pronunciation is what it is, but he's saying, but Nanak, never forget, there's a hukum that's guiding the whole thing. You come and you go within hukum. So there's still the divine will that contains our experience. And while we have the ability to create certain habits and do certain actions, and what we plant, we reap, it's still held in this greater vision of the one who's guiding our soul towards through lessons, and we're coming and we're going based on kind of a higher plan that we don't necessarily understand. So that's my that's kind of my brief explanation of my understanding of the 20th Pauri.
Thank you so much, Ji. I think Ravinder Viji is back. Vijay, please take over, Ji. Ravinder Viji.
Ravinder Vijay, you're mute right now.
Okay. Ravinder Viji, can you hear us? Okay. I think meanwhile, HVG, I don't know. Can HVG hear us? HVG?
I think Dayal Singh ji, I think he's having the audio issue. So I'm trying to resolve on the site. So.
I think HK has written that he has a microphone. Okay, anyway.
Anji, I think we have to like HKVG also joined back today, Gurdeep Singh ji, and then also we have Harpal Singh ji.
Sorry, Harpal Viji.
Yeah, so I think Gurdeep Singh Virji have a good connection, so we can go to him. But I'm trying to resolve the issue with the Dayal Virji.
Okay.
Virji, Virji, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Vaheguru Khalsa, Vaheguru Fateh ji.
Normally, I would like to pause because I would like to listen first because after a long time I am joining. But still, few points on is one single point that is what Ekankar Kaurji was telling, that is about hukam. We have been discussing all along what is hukam rajai chalna. So one interpretation she gave, that is divine will, and I think we can still recall our other more interpretations about hukam, that is the divine laws as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. I think Ravinder Vijay is back. Can you hear us, Ji?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ji, bilkul theek hai, Ji, bilkul theek hai. Please take over, Ji.
Nidhi, why don't you carry on for a little while? I'm sorry I'm late.
No, that's fine, Ji. So far, Ekankar Kaur have shared her views, and then we had heard about little bit from Gurdeep Virji from Amritsar. So you can take out the strings from there.
Okay. Can I, Harvinder, who all do we have on? I can see Ekankar Kaurji. I see Charan Singh Virji.
Elaine is there. Jeet Virji is there.
Gurdeep Singh Virji.
I think today we have like Hardayal Singh ji. He's from New Jersey, and he's trying to have his audio fixed. And Gurdeep Singh ji from Amritsar also joined back. And we have Eileen and Paramveer Singh Rana ji.
ठीक है जी.
So you know from Australia also.
हाँ जी.
Gurjeet Singh Virji from Australia also is there.
अच्छा जी, ठीक है. I'll do my best. I'm still sort of half awake, but so this is what happens when you get old. So last week, I just want to very quickly cycle back to last week's discussion I think we all agreed that this Pauri was conceptually not difficult to understand, but perhaps difficult to implement. Can I request that people put themselves on mute unless they're speaking, because I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Appreciate that. So the questions that we were wrestling with the last time were really our notions of pop and pun, because I think people had different ideas of what pop and pun, and I kind of heard a little bit of what Ekunkarji just mentioned about the pop and pun. Nonetheless, I think what I want to put out to the panel is there was a question that was raised towards the end by Charan Singh Veerji, and we had left the discussion with the understanding that we were going to go back to that question. And I want to really stick that question out there. Veerji, do you recall the question? Because I'm still looking for my notes from last time. You had a question around.
I do recall, Ji. The only thing is, I think.
Are we off in a different direction now?
No, certainly not. I think Ekunkarji has addressed it in a very nice way.
Okay.
But I would like to just state the question. And my question was, when we talk about Gurmat, I think we, Gurji, Elaine, and I have a little bit reflected on the blog also on this issue. When we talk about Gurmat, we talk about Gurumat, only Gurmat, which means whatever enshrines and eliminates the Guru Granth Sahib, that is our Gurmat. So when we try to read something from the Guru, which probably is based on our dialects, our vernaculars, or our understanding from other sources, then I think we are taking some tangents from the main, what enshrines and eliminates the Guru, and what is considered as the Gurmat, the ultimate in the wisdom. So my question is, how appropriate it is to use our secondary source to add up some sounds and make a meaning of those sounds like punni, papi, sakhan, and nahe. When we add a bindi nasal tone to the papa, that becomes a sin, or nicely explained by Kunkar Kaurji. But on the other hand, the addition of bindi causes that. The question is, how appropriate it is to use that nasal sound for papa.
Or for that matter, in other parts of Gurbani as well.
Yeah.
So has that question been addressed, or are we still with that question?
We were waiting for you, so I don't know. I just started with the new members who had come, like Ekunkarji and others. So
okay. So I think there are two parts to what you are saying, it seems to me. One is the use of so-called secondary sources in trying to understand Gurbani, and of course you've done a good job of defining what Gurbani is here and Gurmat is. It seems to me that we had settled that question the last time, right? I mean, we had all spoken, and I remember Harpreet also had expressed his views about that, and we had kind of agreed that there are secondary sources that a lot of us need to use. And I'll throw my 2 cents in. I mean, if I were to approach Gurbani without any kind of support, let us say I was starting off, I would be hard-pressed to try to make sense of the language or anything for that matter. So what I would like to suggest is that we sort of go to the second part of your question, which now I'm beginning to recall, was whether it was proper or correct for us to insert these sounds, nasal sounds or lack thereof, in the reading of this Gurbani. Would you agree that we can pursue this part of the question?
Yeah, that's fine, Ji.
Anji. So with that, I will start again. I see people in sequence, you know, the images. So Ekunkar Kaurji is to the extreme left. Let me come back to you. So did you get a sense of what I was trying to say, Ekunkar Kaurji, and can you address that?
I can't say that I'm understanding the question, to be honest with you.
I think what Vijay Charan Singh Ji is saying here is that is it proper for us to insert nasal sounds or lack thereof in reading Gurbani where there is no indication of a nasal sound? For example, the word papa, we say papa with a nasal sound, whereas it is actually written without the nasal sound. So that becomes, and it is generally accepted convention. So I think he's questioning whether that is the correct way to do it.
Well, I mean, okay, so here's my crazy view on it, which is that if we want to get super, super strict, there's no spaces between the words in Gurbani if you want to go back to the way it was originally written, which is that it's written in pure sound. It was never, the original conception of Gurbani was never as a language, it was as a sound current. And there were no spaces between the words. And so the way that we drop the final vowels even, if you go back to the way it was originally written, you wouldn't be dropping the final vowels. You would be pronouncing every single vowel, and you would, so the whole conversation of how we pronounce Gurbani today versus where it started, there's a lot there. So my response would be, if we're going to be purists about it, go back to the way it was originally written without spaces and pronounce it that way, only what's there. And if we're going to be modern about it, we have to relax about the fact that all kinds of conventions have been introduced, and it's like everything else. You evolve in your pronunciation, you evolve in your understanding, and and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's just a process. So that's my.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. I think you've set a context here on whether or not we are going to be purists about it, or whether we are going to accept the inevitability of an evolving process. So let me go to some of the other panelists. Paramjit Singh ji, I know you're there. Would you want to add because what I'm trying to get at is, we've come here collectively, and we all kind of have to agree, to the format. How are we going to do this? And so from time to time, I think we need to sort of even out and leaven out some of these discussions. So it's a good discussion to have. So Paramjit Singh ji, would you want to sort of comment on this? What's your view in the context of this discussion as well?
Yes, well, I have a general comment too. You see, we have gone over this 40-20. Number 20, Raviel Singh ji has described it very well, and then Dr. Jaswant Singh has done it, and we are going over that over and over again. I think we are in the process of learning this thing rather than stopping at one place and seeking perfection. Does not make sense to me. And these words, you see, we are stopping the words, how to say these words. When we are serious, we are diligent, we are doing our best. Our first priority is to understand the message, and we are posing some irrelevant questions too. I just see that. I will give you examples here too, because I was going over the blog. Let me give one example here. Okay, we are talking Pariya is a process or it's event. Whatever it is, doesn't make any sense as long as we don't indulge ourselves in a pop. You put it very nicely. Let's focus on pop, which is more relevant. But asking question, you see, is the process or the event? It doesn't make any sense to understand the Gurbani. Idea is we shouldn't be filling it up, well, event or process. Then we are talking about papa. Papa means whether we are putting it in. If we substitute the word papa means putting it in, the sentence Guru Sahib what is saying does not make any sense. Pariye mat papa. Put in there, substitute the word, and I look at that. Why we are asking questions? Because it is just like a milk run. Our focus is to understand Gurbani, and as we evolve over time, these concepts will become clear. But if we pause at this at one juncture, that we cannot move further. I think we have done this Pauri very well. There's certain concept as full. You were talking the blog very nicely. We have to focus on that. What is mat? We have to focus on that. Ava, Javan, Ape, Bij, Ape, Khoj. These are things we have to talk about. And so if Bindi is there or not there, I was scanning Guru Granth Sahib and I saw Papa word. If you look at Papa, I look Papa word. Papa words came 18 times and 3 times is Bindi. And all the time it meant sin. Okay, but when you went pop, you look at 300 times or so, that's fine. But then I thought, is it really worth for us to stop here and just indulge in just peeling the onion? Just take one word Pariya, and we are peeling the word like onion, and we get nothing. So my suggestion would be that we have gone over the meaning of that. Look at the key concepts which we need to understand. Papundi gal is one thing, and ape bij, ape khao. Let's talk about that. Hukam is these. Let's focus on broader concepts rather than simple each single word. That's what I want to
Thank
say.
you, Ranavirji. You make your point is well taken. So let me go to Gurjeet Singh out in Australia. Virji, in a minute or so, can you just sort of add your perspective?
Yeah, when you look at the words, I've even written on the blog that the word utras here has to be seen. It is written in a different way compared to when it is written somewhere else. So there are few Sahib which doesn't match. So that somehow when you do the meaning, it does make a sense. It should be with a sihari. Pani tota utras ke. And then the second aspect we have to discuss is there are three types of mats. There's a
you're missing. Virji, can you stick to the question? I mean, we are talking about the insertion of things like nasal voices in words.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, please allude to what Paramjit Singh Ji Rana was talking about. I mean, I think, and then we can come to the meaning of mat.
All right. When you read the Shri Rag, it's only at one place written Pehla, right, in letters. Everywhere else is written one, but we read it as Pehla. So there are few places where they have inserted bindis, which Dr. Saab or the person before me, I don't remember his name, he spoke. There are three spots where there is a bindi. So they haven't inserted bindis everywhere, but we have to use it wherever it is necessary. It's our language, and Punjabi use a lot of, Gurmukhi use a lot of nasal sounds. Wherever it is necessary, we have to. But sometimes we extend it. 90% of the time, the word is ja, but we normally say it jam.
So what you're saying is that we are not sort of being we are not being purists, as Ekonkarji has said, and so even our sounding of the words may have evolved, and it is quite okay to use them as long as they make sense to us in our current context.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you. Gurdeep Singh Virji in Amritsar, are you still on?
Hi, Virji. My view is very similar that to what Ekonkarji pointed out. If we can use spaces for speaking, because the original Gurbani is written without spaces. So then why not we can insert sounds where it makes sense. And moreover, we should not too much dwell on this subject, because otherwise without bindi, Papa does not have any sense or meaning here in this. So why waste so much time on this view? I also corroborate, and inserting bindis and nasal sounds, wherever it is necessary, we must do it. Like we are inserting spaces.
Hanji, Elaine, I know you're there. Just one last sort of person to ask this question. I think we're getting the drift of what the general feeling is.
Yes, I'm surprised, but I'm just going to take the opposing view, and I actually am a bit more of a purist. Maybe it's because I've just taken the Gurbani language and grammar class with Surinder Singh, but you know, my understanding is that the variety of languages that Gurbani is derived from the Braj to the Lahimdi and the Punjabi, the Old Hindi, there's a linguistic history that exists. It's not random. It's not sort of out of a context of linguistics of a certain time. So to me, when looking at the words, understanding that, okay, a bindi was not used and nasalization was not used, and that was a choice that was made at that time. So I derive a lot of insight for myself about nuances of the words and the meanings of the word from looking at it a little bit more purely. I don't have a modern Punjabi language background, so I just am going straight to the original text. And so for me, it's helpful. The case of pop, I think I never would have envisioned it with a nasal sound. So I'm looking at it directly. So that's my point of view.
Okay, thank you. Harvinder, do you want to add to this and then we move on? I just want to come to some conclusion here.
I think we also have Hardyal Singh ji from New Jersey today on the call.
Hanji, Hardyal Singh ji, since you're party to the conversation, do you have a view on this? He doesn't have a view, it seems to me. Or is he on? So, Harvinder, do you want to add anything?
I think I have the same view that wherever it is required, we add it. So I don't have any like personal view on this thing. Like
okay. So all right. So let me quickly kind of suggest something here. I think clearly the majority sense seems to be that we need to begin to understand the meaning in the sort of context that we live in. I also get the sense that we don't need to be purists, you know, considering that we have inserted spaces, and to you know, to the view that the language was written in the way it was meant to be pronounced. Then again, we've modified it when we printed it. So there could be some printer's devils as well that we don't know about. My whole contention is this. I can appreciate both sides, but in my own experience, what I have found is that an engagement at one level with the text just to try to understand the message is perhaps more important. And this is an iterative process. And I think that as I have understood Gurbani over the years, I find that as I've understood it better, I have naturally been drawn to the grammar, to the usage, to the use of nasal sounds, to an understanding of why they are or not being used. So as somebody I think also said, this is an evolution, and we will just get there. I personally would suggest that we try and maintain a certain cadence in these discussions because, you know, at the end of the day, we have only an hour. So we can't get sidetracked into more technical issues that not everybody is qualified to comment on. I certainly am not. So I think it might make sense for us to sort of stick to the meaning. And I think another member suggested that we have gone through this Pauri quite a few times. It is not that difficult to conceptually understand it. There are still some ideas around pop and pun, which I'm happy to, and mat, for example, you know, the soiling of the mat. Perhaps that clarity, another few minutes might help us, and then we ought to move on to the next Pauri. I just want to suggest this to the panel out there. So unless I hear someone vociferously objecting to this approach, I'll give you guys about 10 seconds to really speak up. I'm suggesting that we move on.
I agree with that. We should move on. But,
hold on, one at a time. Charan Singh Virji.
Gurjit Virji, let's hear from him. Gurjit Virji,
if you read the Sarang, if you read the headings of Sarang Rag in Gurbani, half of the time the word Sarang is written with a tippi, and half of the time it is not written with a tippi. So we have to conclude, do we read it as a Sarang or do we read it as a Sarang? There is some indication there that nasalization is a part of our language.
Hanji, so, you know, I'm just simply suggesting an approach, not a wrong or right thing here. All I'm saying is we have an hour, we come together, and we want to consider the meaning of Gurbani. So let's try and not get too bogged down into some of these questions, which are by no means unimportant. I mean, as I said earlier, I think this is a natural evolutionary process. We'll all sort of, at our own pace, get there, and maybe somewhere down the road we can begin to get deeper into the syntax and the grammar and all of that. But for now, as we are already on Pauri 20, I would suggest that we move along. So that's what Hanji Charan Singh Virji.
My only request to all panel members is that the life is not a rushing kind of mechanism. We have read these because we have read this Bani, we have read everything. Now is the time to reorganize ourselves as a researcher group, not just as a participative or not as a rushing kind of group which wants to finish up with the discussion on this or sharing perspective. It's a mechanism, it's an opportunity for all of us to research Gurbani. What we are bringing to the table is not research. Wherever, and I can assure all of you that if we go with some stuff which I have written on the blog, and that too will be collective, I can on a dotted line I can sign that there is no need for the nasal sound with the bindi. If we really understand Gurbani, this is the implication of understanding Gurbani in the right perspective, that there is no need for the nasal sound on papa. There is no need for an extra nanna or nasal sound. Whenever it is available, whenever it is convenient to you all, we can revert back to this model. But my approach will be based on Gurbani. We should explore it, we should research it, we should go more towards the purest form rather than the adulterated form. We should go for the milk, not adding water into it. All we do right now with these type of approaches, casual approach, or doesn't make a relevant sense to me because I am tuned up to a monotony of reading the Gurbani like that. That doesn't make sense to me. That approach should end here, because if not, when we will research Gurbani, when we will understand the real meaning of Gurbani,
Okay,
that can
Virji,
also
I've got to cut you off here. I'm sorry. I don't think that we got on today to actually discuss an approach all over again. We had this discussion not long ago, and I think overwhelmingly everyone said that they were deriving a lot of benefit from the way the discussion was going on. So, and the other point is that we will eventually get to the milk. We have to start somewhere. Thirdly, I don't believe that everyone here is, of one mindset, different abilities, different, approaches, and we also agreed that we were going to let this evolve, and we will come back and circle back. So, since you seem to be so insistent that we stop and start doing research, all I can suggest is that the panel here make that determination. It's not for me as an individual to say yay or nay. So, Harvinder, since you are also running this, I would put this to you and say, is this the time for us to really start revisiting how we want? Is this a research group? I mean, I'm quite okay to sort of have that
Okay,
discussion.
I would like to say something too.
Hanji, please identify
Param,
yourself.
Paramjit Singh.
Hanji.
Well, I understand what Charan Singh ji is saying. That's fine. But people who are interested in delving deep into this one, who are research oriented, they can post all the questions in the blog and let the answers come. But on this panel, we have to move forward and let this be a evolving process of people like us. And personally, I have learned a lot. And yes, next time I come around, I will be doing the same thing what Charan Singh ji, Veer or other people are doing. But right now, I think the research avenue should be left on the blog. People who want to talk about that, good enough. But on this panel, we have a limited time, and we want to cover. We have to understand. We don't want to stuck on Sunni. We have to go to Mani too, so we can implement on ourselves. But if we talk about Sarang, what difference does it make if we are sincere about it? Does it make any meaning, a difference in the meaning? I don't understand that.
Hanji, thank you. Hanji, Eko Karkorji, do you want to say something to that?
I don't think I have anything new to say that I didn't say before, which is I think it's just okay for everybody to express where they're at, where their voice is. And so when Charan Singh wants to talk about the purest perspective, he can. And when, but I think when people have different perspectives, I think, like for me, I think if the goal is for all of us to think the same at the end of it, this is not, then I don't think that's the right process. I think the goal is for everyone to share their view, and we're learning from each other. That's it. We're just learning from each other. I don't agree with half of what I hear, but I'm glad to hear it because I love understanding the different ways people look at things. And I for me, that's the value of the panel. Is let's just talk, and I don't have to agree with you, but God, I love that you think that way, and I'm glad to understand that perspective.
Thank you. Anji, वो पीछे रौला पै रही यार बड़ा.
पता नहीं, I think सबने mute नहीं किया था यार. I think I agree with Ekankar ji. I think the idea, and Paramjit Singh ji also, that idea is that Charan Singh ji, like if we he wants to define the meaning without the nasal sound, we are okay to hear that. And also basically wherever it makes a difference in the interpretation or the meaning, we would like to hear all the feedback, because that is good, because we may learn something new. But we don't also want to get stuck on the word, because if all the panel members have not looked at that more deeply. But we have the blog. So blog is the right forum where we have more time and we can explain in more detail why we think we should have the nasal sound or not, and then discuss in more detail there. And if we have to discuss, we can always do online, but for the online we can stick to the meaning, like what are we learning from this passage, this stanza, this shabad, so how it is impacting my daily life. So we should not forget our main goal, that we need to learn from Gurbani, learn from each other, and see what are the different meanings of the shabad. But the other side, the pure form, is also very important. We don't want to ignore that, but we should spend more time on that on the blog than online.
ठीक है जी. Thank you, appreciate it. One last round. Does anybody else want to add to this? And then I would like to really get into the heart of the matter here.
Really,
Anji,
I just want to add one.
Yes, please, Elaine, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I believe that they're definitely not mutually exclusive, to look at the pure forms and also take away something to our daily life. And I think that because some of the pure forms are new information sometimes, like it's very, you know, I may not be able to find a reference for it in my Shackles dictionary or something. I think it needs a little bit more explanation, but then I think once that opens up, it becomes really helpful. So I think, you know, just I don't think they're exclusive. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Hanji, Gurdeep Singh Virji.
Hanji, I have got one point.
Hanji.
What Mr. Charan Singh ji has come forward, that this will resolve into two questions. One is pronunciation part, and second is the meaning part. If he wants to bring out a different meaning with nasal sound and without a nasal sound, he's most welcome to discuss it right now. But if it's only whether we should use nasal sound in pronouncing, let it be discussed on blog, and let the people have their views. Because nowadays, now in Punjabi language, adak is also another one. Some people are introducing adak, some people are not. When the adak changes the meaning, well, then if does not change the meaning, what does it matter?
TKG. So here's what I'm going to suggest, based on what I'm hearing. I mean, so I think that we need to move on with the cadence that we are, meaning it's an hour. We do want to finish up as well, but we don't want to speed things up. We don't want to rush either. I get that. I think that we, you know, whether you have a research orientation or whether you've just come here to get basic meaning and, you know, you're coming from a different orientation, that's all fine. Whoever has whatever point of view has, at the end of the day, only a limited amount of time on this panel. So it doesn't matter where you're coming from. So I would suggest to Charan Singh Virji that if he discerns a different meaning, or if he wants to provide information on why we need to use or not use a nasal sound, for example, that's all very well. I think that's something that will educate us all. But we need not detain ourselves in that kind of discussion. And I think Gurdeep Singh Virji makes a great suggestion. Pronunciation, surely I think we can all be corrected on that. And, you know, if it doesn't fundamentally change the meaning, if my takeaway from the passage doesn't really change, then let's move on. That's what I would suggest. Let's not sort of straight-jacket ourselves or play ourselves into a corner. ठीक है जी? Okay. So I want to, you know, I think we have about 15 minutes, 20 minutes left. I don't want to start a new party, but I do want to revert back to the panel on the idea of Bariye mat papa ke sang. So we know that, you know, this is a kind of a metaphor, and I know that Gurjeet Singh Virji from Australia did write a blog, and a lot of others did write a blog. I personally, this is a question that I'm asking. The meaning of mat, and how do you soil the mat with papa? You know, in very simple language. How would somebody like me understand that? What does it mean when you tell me that your mind or your intellect or your you know, whatever it may be is contaminated or soiled? What does it really mean? I mean, to say that I'm missing the mark, or as someone said, you know, residual effects of my thinking. I want to sort of raise that for the balance of the time, if you don't mind. So I'm going to go to Charan Singh Virji, start with him. So Virji, do you want to start with this and in as simple a way explain what does Pariye mat papa ke sang mean in the context of daily life? What would that mean?
See, from my perspective, my intellect is whatever knowledge I have acquired from the outside, and that is the main reason of my resistance to not bringing the secondary sources. Because whatever intellect my intellect is my ability to discriminate. Mat is my ability to discriminate from the knowledge and apply it on me so that I could have a happy and I could have a sachara characteristic flowing through me, right? So whatever knowledge I have acquired, that pollutes me. Whatever things of my senses, whatever my awareness creates for me, and whatever language I learn those awareness things, I get tempted and I fill my knowledge base, fill my intellect, and I process that intellect using those reasonings. So at the base of structure, my entire mat gets polluted with the repetitive inputs. Papa, when I keep on inputting the stuff into my head from various sources, that's how my mat gets deviated from the main purpose of my life. Thank you, Ji.
Okay, thank you, Ji. So it seems to me that what Virji is suggesting is that the way we absorb knowledge and the way we discern it and the way we sort of categorize it through our intellect sort of tends to condition our minds, and it tends to build our rather inflexible mental structures. Would it then be appropriate to call Papa some sort of a blind spot that prevents you from seeing through your pre-established mental structures? Elaine, do you want to address that? You there? Okay. Let me go to Ekunkar Kaurji.
Yeah. So,
would you see this as a kind of a blind spot that we develop?
I think Eileen can answer. She's back. Are you there, Eileen?
She's here. Okay.
Yes, thanks. Sorry, I think I had a mute. Well, what was interesting in the discussion about the different variations on the word papa was this process of accumulation, right? And so what I thought about there was, instead of translating for myself into English as sins, I started to think about it as corruption, kind of corruption of something that's good, or corruption is sort of like a process of tainting something that's pure from something, again, from outside, or something negative. So, I looked at it as taking the original, creator within and kind of mapping it or corrupting that source of information or source with something else that's, I don't know exactly what it is, but something negative.
Okay. Ekunkar Kaurji, can you sort of develop? So here's my add-on question. So, am I, in some senses, corrupted, as Eileen is saying? How do I know that I'm corrupted? Or is that a given state? Is that the state that we are all in? Or is it something else?
Well, you know, I take it more to a practical level, to be honest. So, you know, the mutt is the way that I, through my intellect, interact with the world. And when you meditate, when we do our Simran and the Amrit Vela, the things that come up is the negativity of the subconscious. Like meditation triggers an opening in the subconscious where the crap is stored. And that's what the pop is. It's the thing inside of you that when you meditate you struggle with, and it's blocking you, and it's the pain that you experienced when you were young. It's the person who pissed you off in the office that day. I don't think it's super philosophical or intellectual. I think Guru Nanak gave people a very simple path to heal themselves. And so the pop is all the darkness and the pain inside of you, whatever that looks like, whatever form that takes for you, and you experience it when you meditate, because you're starting to open yourself and clean yourself. And
So
it's really
if I were to tell you, so just for argument's sake, if I were to tell you, but I don't feel any negativity, does that mean I'm not corrupted?
Yeah. If you meditate and you've got no negativity that's coming up, you've done the work, you've cleaned yourself, you're living a pretty...
But I've never meditated, and yet I don't feel any negativity.
Okay, well...
How would you explain that? So am I missing something?
That's called denial. It's
Okay.
like, because Guru
So
Nanak...
that was my question. That was my question. Is
Yeah.
this something that is inherent in us? We could be
Yes.
denying it, of course.
Yes.
Okay. So that's where I was going.
Right. That my joke is, when I started to chant Japji every morning in the Amrit Vela, I became really angry. And all the people around me said, no, you were always really angry, you just never recognized it. So the act of Simran in the Amrit Vela, that's the technology Guru Nanak gave us. The Simran in the Amrit Vela forces us to start to see the darkness in ourselves that we are normally blind to, that we normally don't pay attention to. And it gives us the space to psychologically and spiritually wrestle with it and process it and begin to shift it and change it.
Thank you. So yeah, I was alluding to a blind spot, and that's really what I was trying to understand in my own mind is, to Charan Singh Veerji's explanation that continuous accumulation of knowledge, which is our interaction with the outside world through our senses, creating a blind spot, which I have often regarded as being my home. I mean, that is my blind spot. And it requires, as you said, the technology that the Guru has given us, and the technology is one of inversion. There has to be some inversion, which is really where meditation takes you, for you to be able to see the fact that you may be in denial of yourself. So somebody who says, like me, oftentimes, well, I have no negativity. Well, the fact of the matter is that we tend to create self-images that can be very deceptive. And you probably don't know that. So thank you for that response. Hanji Gurdeep Singh Veerji in Amritsar, do you want to sort of lend us some insight to this discussion here? Not there. Hanji Ranavirji.
Hanji, I'm online. Hanji.
Hanji.
Hello.
Hello.
I was
Hanji Gurdeep Singh Veerji is on. Ranavirji, give me a minute.
Sure.
What I understood from, maybe I am wrong. I have wrongly understood that the Papa should be interpreted as Papa. That means again and again putting in, again and again putting in. If this is the meaning he is conveying, I mean repetition of adding something falsehood or something like that. That is what is meaning by Papa, not Papa. Then I would say that in the next line, Punni Papi. The Papi is opposite of Punni. So I think the interpretation should be simple. That is Pap, what we normally understand from Pap. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanji Ranavirji. You want to comment on some of the points that were made?
Hanji, I think it is a very complex concept, Papa, and that's why we all agree that it's going to evolve over time and our understanding will grow. My basic understanding is it is much, of course, is our intellect, and we know when we are doing something wrong. Nobody has to tell us. Our conscience tells us. We know exactly. So what pop is, which you know yourself, there's one way to see what is pop. If you're really sincere, really diligent, there's no ego, as you mentioned that, then you can identify you're doing something wrong in your actions, in your deeds, or in your communications. The other way is other people can tell you what you're doing wrong. If you hurt somebody, you can know that you have done wrong. So, but this concept is still not very clear to me, but I just take it, I know when I doing wrong or pop, what you call something's wrong, I know exactly it's not wrong. But when I don't do it, my own conscience tells me, oh gee, you are great, you are so honest and sincere. So what I'm saying is it's a very complex concept. Yes, it is to do with our intellect. Sometimes we know what is wrong, but we don't admit because of ego. But sometimes other people tell us when we are wrong and we have to acknowledge that. But we will learn more about this thing.
Hanji, thank you, Ji. Thank you. Thank you. So, you know, Ranavirji brought up the idea of right and wrong. And I want to question whether it is a matter of right or wrong. Like you said, you know, something in me tells me, will tell me when I'm wrong. Now, could that notion of wrong, could that notion of so we hey Harvinder, we've got somebody in Australia. I don't know. There's a lot of background noise.
Hanji, I just muted Gurjit Singh ji.
Okay, so let me get back to what I was saying. So could it be that it is more than just a matter of being right or wrong? Could it also be that Papa is underlying sort of error in which we look at the world, you know, our notion of the world as such? I'm just sort of trying to clarify my own thinking. So if Gurjit Singh ji is there, would you want to address this question with
Hanji, as for my understanding, ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ examples from within Gurbani we should talk. Kabir Sahib says, Pehli kurup kujat ko lakhani sore paiye buri. This is my original wisdom with which I was born. Ab ki sundar saroop sulakhani sahaje udartari. This is a new mat. It means the first mat was Pari hui si papa na. There are three mats in Gurmat discussed. One is Manmat, another is Durmat, third is Gurmat. As far as we are on Gurmat, there is no problem. But regionally we are either on Manmat or we are on Durmat. Durmat is the really the most dangerous mat. I'll give you just one example. In whole of Gurbani, it's not mentioned who is Nanak's son, who is Nanak's wife, who is Nanak's father, because it's a spiritual text. Nanak himself says that Harji Mata, Harji Pita. My own spirit, my mool is my mother and father. But when we address that Mehta Kaluji is his father, to me it appears that this is like Pariye Mata Papa ke Sang, because Gurbani doesn't address this. Gurbani says Mat Mata Santok Pita. So the total spirituality in Gurbani has to be explored. That will eradicate all the whatever we have been educated so far. So we have to eliminate. Faridji says, Panni Kadi Savanvi, that I have to break my old mat because it was full of paps. Lack of knowledge of spirituality is pap. Knowledge of spirituality is pun. Kal mein ho pun gun govind gai. I just want to add this much.
Hanji, thank you very much for that insight. And I think it suggests that there is a process of corruption, as Elaine put it. There is a process of corruption that occurs in the very process of creation, in creating us, humans. There is a process of corruption that occurs where we lose touch with our pristine wisdom. I think that's what I'm gathering from what Gurjeet Singh just said. And it is to basically reclaim that wisdom, that gurmat that we are talking about. So now I'm looking at my watch here. It's 9:56, 4 more minutes. I'm going to turn to all of you and say you have a minute each for any closing remarks. So I'll start with you again, Ekonkarji, since you're to my extreme left here on my screen.
I don't really have any closing remarks.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Gurdeep Singh Virji, Amritsar, you have a minute?
I think he just logged off.
He just logged off. Okay, so no concluding remarks. Charan Singh Virji?
My only remarks are that I want to apologize from all of you because I have unnecessarily slowed down the process with which the group wanted to go. I appreciate that they are inclusive of whichever perspective I'm trying to bring out, but and I won't be available for the coming few weeks because I won't be here. So my only request to Paramjit Virji or Gurdeep Virji is the way I have seen a very positive aspect in them when they go and search for their perspective. So to them, I would encourage them to see the same way they have saw Pun. They should go and research what is Punni and in what context Punni has been used. Punni has not been used as a person. Punni has been used 99% of the time as a accomplishment. So the sense won't make. The nasal sound will disappear when they will research certain words, and the whole context of this body will change. That's all I have to say, Ji. Thank you very much. And I apologize.
Virji, I have a suggestion. Please, there's no need for an apology. I think that what you are bringing to the table is extremely useful. I am simply just struggling with how do we sort of do that. But here's a suggestion I have to make to you. Why can I suggest to you that you pose these questions on the blog, just like you did just now? Maybe what you should do is, instead of writing a full blog, why don't you ask some pointed questions on the blog that says, please go and do some homework on finding the real meaning of Punni. Maybe that'll force all of us to do a little bit of groundwork before we come here, and then we don't have to sort of spend that much time. So that way, everyone will have come, hopefully, prepared a little bit, and it'll incorporate, another dimension into the discussions. That is something that I would suggest to you, and would, in fact, ask you to do.
I have written on the blog that we should search and cross-check whatever I'm writing about the Punni also.
No, I was saying maybe you want to pose your questions more directly.
Okay. Thank you, Ji.
Because I will tell you, I do read your blogs, Virji. I read your blogs, but my problem is I have trouble understanding them. So if you were as direct as you were now, maybe I'd understand what you're trying to say. So I am struggling with them, to be quite honest with you. So maybe if we can keep it very simple, and if you can come down to my level, and maybe I can sort of do some homework as well. Hanji, Gurjeet Singh Ji, you have less than a minute.
Yeah, Papi Punni is a sort of sect which used to believe that a pap can be balanced by a pun, but Gurbani doesn't agree. Say you have to obey the hukam, and that's the only way you can liberate yourself. You can't say that if I've killed a cat, I will just give you 2 more cats. It doesn't work that way. Once you realize the hukam, all the pap vanishes straight away.
Thank you, Ji. I mean, you bring up an important point, because this sort of, I think, addresses the old Hindu law of karma, but that for another day. And have I missed anybody here? Paramjit Singh Ji, Rana Ji?
Yes, I just want to add my comments on that. First of all, you see, let me express my deep gratitude to everybody that we are learning. Yes, we have different points of view. And the point is that I like the question, Chansingh, you pose because it percolates my mind to think about those things. And yes, I may not agree, but that does not mean that we shouldn't explore these things. Yes, do put questions and we will seek out answers, respond, and then you respond to that. That will be a very encouraging learning process. And again, I have learned a lot and I appreciate everybody's contribution to this. Thank you very much.
This is Harjal Singh. I would just like to add one point. I mean, I saw, Saranjit Singh, you mentioned about, the blind spot, right? I mean, I think that,
I did, yeah.
Yeah, this, and then I think Ikonkar Kaur mentioned about, the removing of pops from the Simran, right? Now, I think from my experience, what I've learned or noticed is that if we don't do the practice as Benji had mentioned of doing Simran and clearing the mind up, there is a possibility of a stage where we may just be living in blind spots.
Yes.
And that is one of the most dangerous scenarios where life becomes hell. So I'm really glad and honored to be a part of the team that's over here, and I think these are very interesting discussions, and I would like to continue on.
Please do.
Yeah, I'll be in India for the next 2 weeks, and I'll try to join in from there.
So thank you very much for coming on. And now, Harvinder, I have a broader question. A lot of people are going to be unavailable. I am going to have trouble for the balance of this month to come on because there's a lot going on at work and in other places. So how do we want to convene in the new year?
I think, yeah, so Charan Singh Viji is also going to India, and then Hardyal will.
Hanji, and I will be out a couple of weeks.
Okay, so if all the panel member agrees, and before I answer that thing, do we want to spend more time on Pauri 20, the last line, "Ape beach, ape hi khao, nanak hukme awa jao," or we are clear on that and we want to move to next Pauri? So if we are done, then we are.
I would recommend that we move on to the next Pauri because this is an iterative process, and we will most likely come back to a lot of concepts and we'll revisit them over and over again.
Okay, so if that is the case, then I think if all panel member agrees, then we can I think take a few weeks break and reconvene on 7th of January. If that is fine, or if panel member says that they will be available and they want to continue, so we can go one round in the panel.
So very quickly, do we want to reconvene January 7th is the question. Ikonkar Kaurji, yes, no?
Yes, I'd rather us convene when we've got, everybody available.
Okay. And Charan Singh Veer ji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇ ਹੀ ਦਿੱਤਾ. So Gurjeet Singh ji in Australia, January 7th works for you? He's not there. Hardyal Singh ji, January 7th, will that work for you?
Hanji, January 7th will work for me, please.
Okay. It'll work for me too, Arvinder, and I don't know what your plan is.
So I think, yeah, so I think if everyone agrees, then we can take 3 weeks break, but in the meantime we can continue on the blog, and then also as we mentioned that even though we discuss and then all the questions that Charan Singh Viji or Gurjeet Singh Viji bring, we should not, like, I think if we can't discuss online, at least we should participate in the blog. We should try to research and answer and then learn on those topics.
So in other words, you're not giving us a break.
Yes.
All right. Got it.
Thank you, Ji.
Get the picture. Well, once again, thank you to each one of you. As a moderator, I can't begin to tell you what a great pleasure it is to have you all here, and I learn so much from each one of you. Have a great holiday season, and we will see you January 7th. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
And wish you the very best of the new year for everybody.
Anji, to all of you.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Ask Elaine also. She didn't say if
I'm sorry, Elaine.